All right, welcome to Dad's Guide to Thrive, your podcast and video series about what dads need to be their best, normalizing the reality that dads often struggle and that we sometimes need to just get some help to overcome challenges we're facing for all the responsibilities we wear as men, as dads, as partners, and all of the above. So today I'm joined by a relatively new friend of mine, Scott Raylor. Scott is both a visual artist and a video producer working at a university in Queensland, and also is a father relatively recently, and is just a lovely, gently spoken man who I've been really looking forward to chatting with. So Scott, thanks heaps for joining me. Welcome to the party.
Hi, Israel. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for the introduction too. It was really nice.
Look, I do my best to butter everyone up so they feel good about getting down into the depths of struggle and pain later on. Look, I just for everyone listening, I know a little bit about you and your background, but why don't you share a bit more about what you do as an artist, about your family, the work you do? Just give us kind of a broad brushstroke overview of who you are as a person.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so yeah, in my work life, I work at Queensland University of Technology, as you said. So I do a few roles there. It's like I sort of say myself I'm a videographer, but yeah, I do producing there. I shoot camera, I record sound, I edit, I look after the camera gear, all that kind of stuff. So tech maintenance and that kind of stuff. Do a bit of directing as well. So yeah, there's many hats which I really like because I like variety. You know, I get a little bit bored if I just do sort of one thing. So it definitely suits me down to the ground. And then outside of that, yeah, I'm into visual art and music and that kind of stuff too. So I took photography pretty seriously for a while there. About 10 years ago, I did it at school and kind of didn't really follow through because I don't know, in my early sort of 20s and that kind of stuff, I was too busy socializing and partying and that kind of stuff. And then I sort of
I have
got back
no
into
idea
it.
what you're talking about.
Well, I'm sure you don't. Yeah. But yeah, things sort of changed me when I went overseas. Just saw a completely new world, and it opened my eyes to many things, and I just wanted to know more about everything. So yeah, I kind of got right into photography, and then I sort of shifted away from that into the film world. So yeah, that's kind of what I do on the outside of that. So I do a few short films, that kind of stuff, music videos, and then a bit of photography in between. So that keeps me pretty busy. And then with my family, I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter, Violet, who is just full of beans, keeps us on our toes every single day. So much energy. I just can't believe it. It's hardcore. But yeah, she's great. She's just the light of our lives. And I have a wife, Charlotte, who's a couple of years younger than myself, 30, going on 37. I'm going on 39. And yeah, we live in Brisbane. She works for the government. She's studied creative writing, and so she loves horses, and she's got that kind of very creative background. So who knows where I'll take it with our little one, Violet.
I can't wait to see where Violet ends up, with both parents being really creative and artistic types, but also having that sort of groundedness of, I guess, university is not really public sector, but it's still very sort of institutional in a sense, right? So you've kind of got that great grounding of that and that stability of those sorts of roles. I loved when you were talking earlier about your work as well. And I was thinking, this guy is such a creative and an artist person where you need things to be quite interesting and diverse and constantly moving. Like, can relate to that myself. I used to be a professional photographer for about 11 years and I'm on like career 4 and I'm only 44 myself. So, I completely get it. Like, we sort of like to go, okay, that was fun. Now what's the next adventure,
Yeah,
So
totally.
And parenthood is one of those adventures too, right? So it's I think the fascinating thing for me, and tell me if this resonates, but my wife and I have 2 kids, and we found, particularly when they were young, that we sort of reached a point where we realized we'd have a child and then it'd take probably 2 years for life to come back to some sort of normal. because it took us that long to kind of figure out what the hell we were doing and what the new family dynamic was and how to manage it and all of that. Did you find something similar with Charlotte when you first had Violet?
Yeah, definitely. It was like, it was full on. It was just kind of like a slap in the face almost. We sort of, because for years before, we'd sort of been talking about, do we have kids? Do we don't? Because we really enjoy ourselves. Like we get along so well as a couple, and we just really enjoy our time together. And so, Charlotte was pretty hesitant at the beginning to dive into motherhood, and she's never been that one to, she's never been that one who's been like, I can't wait to be a mother. And so we talked about it for a while, and then it sort of came to the point, and we were kind of like, look, we're not getting any younger. Let's just do this, And so we did it, and pregnancy was good. Like the lead up to the birth was great. We did a little hypnosis and that kind of stuff. My wife got into hypnosis just to help with the birth and calm birthing and that kind of stuff, which was great. And then we sort of did all the right things, and up to the birth, and the birth was great. It went really smoothly, and it was just, Charlotte was kind of like, I can't do this, but she ended up doing it, and it was like this huge momentous occasion, as you know. And then once the reality set in of, okay, we take this is our little bubba, and we take her home from the hospital now, this like safety net, we're just like, holy shit, what do we do, And so the reality sunk in when we got home, and it was like, okay, we're on our own, And I watched Charlotte. She struggled a fair bit, and it only got worse as it went on. And being who we are, we sort of, and Charlotte's folks live close by, which is great, but it was kind of like we didn't want to bother them. We didn't want to reach out to them and bother them too much. And they're not the kind of parents who just get involved and just like come in and say, right, we're going to take charge. They wait for us to ask. And so they sat back, and we didn't ask, and we took things on. And it was quite difficult. And, Charlotte had to spend many hours breastfeeding and at home with this little bubba, and trying to sort of figure out, am I doing the right thing? Why is she crying? What's going on? Is she hungry? All these sort of things that mothers go through that I'll never understand. And it got pretty difficult there. Hey, and sort of my upbringing was, I watched my dad, who worked 2 jobs to raise the family, and he was all pro work. You got to work hard to get ahead. Work hard, put in the hours now, and then you can retire. And so he sort of earned the money. He was the head of the family. Mum was the stay-at-home mum, and she looked after 4 boys basically. And so I sort of took it on my shoulders to go, right, okay, well, I've got to dig in here, and I've got to uphold the family. So Charlotte's down, it's my responsibility to take charge here, and that put an awful lot of pressure on my shoulders, And so it was quite difficult in the beginning.
Yeah, I should clarify something. Like when you first said, there was that feeling of, oh shit, once we took the baby home, I laughed. And certainly wasn't to diminish the reality of that. It was more of just an acknowledgement that, I remember that. And I can look back at that going, holy shit balls, we had no idea what we were in for when we took those babies home, right? So it was more out of solidarity than out of like, totally. Sucked in, And I also want to touch on a few things that you said there. So first of all, we learn what we get taught by our parents. And so the way our fathers operate as men is like the template of how we should quote unquote, operate in our own lives. So I completely hear you when you said that, your dad was the guy that just went out and did all the working and left all the child rearing to your mum, and everything was like it was all work and take care of the family financially and that kind of stuff as the highest priority. And then whatever life could kind of squeeze around the edges of that, often our dads, that's all they could do. That's all they would spare for themselves, if at all. And And I get that that's a model that has worked successfully for a while and in certain generations past. But I definitely realise personally, and I'm sure you're in the same boat now, where you sort of go, that model doesn't quite work anymore in the modern world. We want to actually participate in our kids. We want to raise them ourselves with our partners. We want to be involved more and go to more school performances and sports carnivals and all the stuff that, because I think we've recognised as a society, but also just men individually, that we don't want to have kids so we can never see them. We want to have kids so we can be a father and be involved in their lives. And it's really interesting because it does create this fascinating tension and this difficulty about how do we reconcile a need to make money and a need to provide for our family, especially in the early phases where the child's mum is just like full-time nursing, bathing, changing, sleeping, trying to rest, trying to nourish and nurture themselves through this chaotic roller coaster. And then there's also the part which, we've touched on a little, but you also mentioned before our call that Charlotte was suffering a bit with, I guess some mental health challenges through the early phases of having Violet. All of these things, like you just sort of sit there and go, they didn't say anything about this in postnatal or prenatal classes. Like they didn't talk about any of that stuff, right? Like it's this,
totally.
And I've said this in the past and possibly even on a previous episode, like, the antenatal classes about like, here's what happens, even the calm birthing stuff. It's like up until the point that the baby pops out healthy and you cut the cord and then off you go. And then after that, it's like, what? There's no template. There's no class on how to look after your own mental well-being in the face of like 3 hours sleep a night and disrupted schedule and extra responsibilities and societal pressures and all the rest of it. And on top of all of that, we sort of find ourselves trying to go, well, what's the emotional model here? And what am I supposed to do? And then what's right for me and what's the right fit to the family and where are the support structures and all of that? Like it's a really fascinating blind spot that I think I've certainly been observing. I'm a fair way down the path from having my kids now. My youngest is 11, but I don't know whether that's been addressed much in terms of preparation for what it's like to become a new parent.
No, like I completely agree. And like you said, the antenatal classes are all like, preparing you for the birth. And then a lot of the women in there are like, okay, so what drug's going to have, like I'm not ready to stand this pain, it's full on. And so
I'm sorry to get into the laughter.
No, I'm seeing you're just relating to it all, so it's just, it's one of those things. And like you said, Charlotte did go down a pretty dark path. She was diagnosed by a doctor with postnatal depression. And for me, that was like a really big challenge because, again, I was kind of like, how do I fix this? I need to fix this. I'm the head of the family. I need to do something about this and take care of my wife, And so, again, when things weren't working, then I'd take it personally and it was my responsibility and all this pressure, and it was just something had to give, basically. And we're kind of lucky we got through it. We ended up just digging in and we ended up asking for help from Charlotte's folks because, again, they were always there. They were just waiting for that word. And then as soon as we said the word, then they jumped in, So, and also too on that, we don't really have any close friends who have kids our age either. So, again, for Charlotte, it was like this sort of solitary pursuit where she couldn't confide, she could confide in her friends, but their friends just didn't understand what she was going through, So, again, that was quite difficult. But yeah, she's pushed through. She pushed out the other side, and she's been doing the mental work and the internal work, and she's just an awesome mum. She's just so good, and there's never any doubt that she was going to be a great mum. And Violet's just getting an amazing mother. So, really happy that we've pushed through the other side of that.
It's really amazing too. Like, I think there's so much, right? So firstly, to your point about the mums just going, right, so what drugs can you just dose me up on, To me, that speaks to like an underlying thing in society that we're not comfortable feeling uncomfortable. We're really not comfortable with the prospect of pain, with this idea that things might hurt. and that's normal and that's okay, you know. And I remember like my wife and I did also like a hypnobirthing, calm birthing style process before our first, and I wasn't invited back after a little while because I kept snoring through the sessions. I'd get so relaxed, I'd be like, you know, I'd be just KO'd on the seat next to my wife, and I remember them saying, "Oh, we just looked and went, oh, he obviously needs his rest. Off he goes, whatever." But and they'd carry on with it, and I'd be out cold. However, that part of it, I remember vividly. There was a strong, what's the word? There was like a focus or a reframe that it wasn't pain. Firstly, it wasn't pain; it was sensations. Right, so that's like a huge piece. And actually, a really one of my closest cousins that I grew up with has chronic kind of what is it? He has like chronic migraines and chronic nerve pain and stuff as a result of some stuff that happened when he was a kid, and just cannot work full time as a consequence. Now he has to be, you know, he's a stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home single dad actually. And just anyway, one of the things he told me, he said it's a formula. He said sensation plus emotion equals pain. So I was like, oh wow, that's a really fascinating breakdown. He said, yeah, if you take the emotion out of it, then it's no longer pain, it's just a sensation in your body, and you can start to look at it objectively. So I think to the thing about the calm birthing, the hypnobirthing, it really is about the mum to be training her mind to acknowledge that there will be some sensations that her body is presenting, and one of the ways you can interpret it is pain. Another way you can interpret it is as, this is what my body needs to feel for me to bring this baby into the world. And, you know, each sensation, I remember one of the mantras my wife had was, each sensation is bringing my baby closer to me, you know, bringing my baby closer to being born, being in the world. And it was this beautiful, beautiful reframe. But so many of us, and I think I'm talking too about men here, not just about women, right? But we, in our society, we live in such a comfort zone that we don't want to feel uncomfortable. We don't want to feel pain. We don't want stuff to hurt and feel hard. But I don't know how you feel about this, but I personally feel like that's a huge disservice to what we're really capable of. And I mean, seeing a woman go through labour and birth a child, and all of the physical challenges that come from that, and then seeing what you've witnessed and what, you know, I've certainly witnessed in my wife, helping me go through my own journey of mental illness and recovery, we're far more capable than we realise.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree 100%. Like you said, when you watch your wife go through this, it's like, man, there's these deeper places that we can go. And like you said, it's kind of, it's an uncomfortable place to be, and we don't like discomfort, so we sort of steer clear of it rather than just pushing through it and letting it sort of wash over us, I guess. So yeah, that's a great point. I guess I kind of, in some way in my mind, somewhere, not consciously, but in some way, I'm just kind of like, okay, if my wife can do it, then I can do it. And so there aren't a lot of resources too for guys. You know, there's no formula for us. There's no textbook that says this is how you have to be a dad. This is how you support your wife. This is what you're going to go through. You know, there's no calm birthing for dads. There's no, like you said, there's no calm birthing for dads. It's kind of, you're there to support. You're kind of seen as this like support mechanism for the whole birth, and rightly so. It is about support, but it's also we need to take care of ourselves too, because we're needed in this. It's like a team effort. We're both needed. So when your wife is in need, that's when you jump in and you do what you need to do. You do what you have to do to take care of your daughter, and in that way too, like what you were saying before, in terms of wanting to not buck the trend, but wanting to be more involved in our kids' lives differently than our parents did, because you know they learned from their parents. There's no like pointing the finger. There's no blame, but they've learned what they've learned from their folks, and they're just moving it down the line. But I think a lot more people are becoming, conscious of a changing world and a changing environment and different roles. Like it's not set in stone, our roles anymore. And I love being there for my daughter. I love I love hanging out with her. I love being with her, and I want to be a big part of her life. And ultimately, my wife says the same thing. Charlotte says the same thing. We want to create this atmosphere for our daughter to be able to come to us with any problems, big or small, to talk to us about it. Because I know for me, there's no way I would have talked to my parents about, going to parties and doing what we did at parties and that kind of stuff. It was kind of like, I'll keep it hush hush because I just don't want them to think that way about me, But knowing what I know, I would love Violet to come to me and say, hey, this is what's going on in my life, and feel comfortable with that.
Yeah. So it's really, firstly, really amazing, and I completely concur. Like, that's the same sort of approach I've taken with both my kids. That I respect that there are things that particularly my 15-year-old daughter doesn't want to talk to dad about. She wants to talk to mum about it. I'm like, okay, I get that. I don't want to, I don't want to force this on you, but I do want her to have that relationship with me where there's a level of openness and a level of confidence that she can come to me about anything, that she can talk to me about absolutely anything that's going on in her world. So, the parenting piece, I feel like that's just this enormous ongoing and ever-evolving journey that we go on. Like, once we choose to become parents, and, for both of us, it sounds like we've taken a very similar approach of like wanting to be the best version of a parent that we can. That's a journey that we kind of take on until you keel over, right? Like, that's always going to evolve. And I think it's also really amazing. I know you mentioned to me before we started that your mum lives a long way away from Brisbane. Coincidentally, she's about 40 minutes away from me at Southwest Rocks, so I'm not far from there. But your wife's parents are close, but still sort of stood back until they were asked for help, which I think is really powerful and a beautiful respecting of your boundaries and respecting of this is your journey. Like those, Charlotte's parents have, and I'm contrasting this to my experience that my mum told me about her parents, who when I was a kid would be turning up on the drive home from work every night at like 5 or 5:30. And my mum's like going out of her skull because it's bath time, feed time, bedtime, and they're like, "Hi, how is he today?" They're just rocking up at the front door. She's like, "Get out of my house! I don't need this right now." Could you imagine? But so I think it's really to be celebrated, I guess, in a way that that Charlotte's parents went, "Okay, we're here, but we're not going to force. We're not going to impose. You need to ask, and then we will absolutely step up and give you everything you need and everything you ask for."
Yeah.
But it raises another point, which is the piece about asking for help in the first place. And I feel like that specifically is something I'd love to just talk to you about and find out where you are on that. And I guess what you've learned over the course of the last 2.5, 3 years, from the latter stages of the pregnancy through to where you are now with Violet. What you've observed in Charlotte, what you've observed in yourself about asking for help and about your behaviours and patterns around that. Because I feel personally like that there's so much tied up in that about our perception of ourselves as men, of our strengths and or weaknesses, about, relying on people and all of that. So fire away. How do you feel about the asking for help piece and what have you learned?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I've learned that there's a balance, like with everything, right? There's a balance in life. And so I love Charlotte's folks because of their ability to stand back, but always, we're here, where my mum wants the best for us. Of course, she loves us. We're her children, right? But she's got that controlling quality about her where she's like, you're still my baby. I want you to do this, but I want you to be careful about it, and I don't know if you should do this, and it's really quite constricting. And so when she comes to stay with us too, she does hang back. It's not like she comes in and she goes, right, this is what I'm going to do, which is fine. But it's also too that there's this kind of thing where you bring mum in and then there's another person in the house, right? And so because she lives not far from you, she'll come and stay with us for weeks on end. And so that puts pressure on Charlotte. She's trying to raise Bubba. She's trying to be mum. She's trying to do her thing. But there's also another presence in the house where we have to make her feel at home. We have to cook. We have to do all these sort of things too, you know. So it's a big balance. So somewhere in the middle of that and Charlotte's folks is the ideal. So I don't know exactly what that is, but I think it's like the perfect place. But what I've observed about how we've sort of grown through this is because we've been through so much pain, let's call it pain and sensation and different sparks of energy. We now have gone and done work on ourselves. So I know you through a coaching course that we've found a guy online, Jim Fortin. He's a big spiritual coaching teaching course, and I've taken that on to dive deeper into myself because I'm looking for deeper connections with life, with myself, with life. And I just kind of always knew things were missing and all this kind of stuff right in my life. But I never really understood responsibility and accountability, true responsibility until I started doing the work on myself. And so I can now see that asking for help is just a limitation from me. It's a story that I've created in my mind. It's a limiting belief. And now I've got the power to change that, right? So it no longer is a problem.
Can I just clarify on that? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So, okay. Sorry to interrupt. So I was just going to ask. So what you're saying is for you now, you've realized that it's okay to ask for help. It's no longer like you no longer attach all those extra stories to it. What would you say are some of the stories you were previously attaching to, I need help, please?
Yeah, cool. So, to clarify that, it's like the old stories would have been like, well, you know, you're not doing the job as a dad. You know, you're the head of the family. You need to take care of this. This is your responsibility. And so asking for help is a sign of weakness, right? It's like, what are people going to think of me? Am I doing a good job? Am I not doing a good job? All these stories that you just, it's like a rabbit hole. Once you start going in those things, they just lead you down a path of darkness, let's say. And so it was just having the ability to say, hey, look, these are just stories. And asking for help is empowering other people because they want to help. They're just waiting for you to ask. And so there's no shame in it. There's no guilt. Like there's no problem. And so, and also too, looking at it from the other side of Violet growing now, she loves hanging out with her grandparents. You know, she loves hanging out with other people, and it gives her an opportunity to develop a deeper relationship with her grandparents. Sorry. So, yeah, we've both kind of come to that realization from doing a bit of inner work and just shedding some limiting beliefs. And it's so much easier. It's just, the weight is just lifted off our shoulders, you know, pressure is gone. And any opportunity we can get to hang out, me and Charlotte, we'll go, right, let's ask your folks if Violet can go stay with them for the night so we can just go hang out together. And it's great.
That's fantastic. So what I'm hearing, if I can kind of reflect back this to you, is that first of all, the work that you did personally helped you identify, and I can also completely relate, and I've spoken about Jim's work previously, both on my podcast and in previous episodes of these interviews. One of the great things is the week on stories and interpretations, where you start to identify that, wow, we just make up stories about things that happen in our lives all the time. It's like we're constantly the storyteller narrating our own existence. Not necessarily factual, not necessarily true, but we're just telling these stories. But we make ourselves believe the truth, or that they are the truth. And then that just sort of is like a lens that we wear that interprets and filters everything we experience. So it's fascinating. I agree. When you start to pull those away and go, hang on a minute, that's a load of crap. That's not actually the truth. That's not a fact. I don't have to believe that anymore. I can make up a new story. So that I think is awesome. And as I said, I love Jim. I love the work that we've learned there. But one of the things I wanted to get to was, as you started to pull these stories away, you kind of reframed it and went, well, if I ask for help, then I'm giving the people in my life the opportunity to support me, to demonstrate and show their love for me. And it's also giving me the gift of, you know, someone to lean on, because I can completely relate trying to carry the whole bloody shebang on your own shoulders. Like, we're not an island, right? Like, it's work, child rearing, looking after your wife, who's obviously having a hard time as well, earning the money, dealing with the pandemic, all of the stuff. There's a lot to try and balance on our own shoulders, and we need a support system for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. And so that process for you of going, it's not weakness. It's actually, I'm empowering other people to support me. I'm giving them the gift of being able to show their love and support for us. Added bonus, you and Charlotte get some more one-on-one time as parents. You don't have to have Violet hanging around the entire time. So you get to nurture and nourish what it means to be a couple still, even as parents.
Yeah.
It's all upside from my perspective. I just wanted to sort of reflect that back and labor over that point, that asking for help is the single best thing you can do if you're having a tough time. So to any of the mums or dads listening, especially the dads, because, we think we're the hero of our own journey and we're, it all has to be done by us or it has no value. Utter bullshit. I'm calling it. It's okay to ask for help. That was the single turning point in my life when I was at my worst with depression, asking for help and admitting, like the step just prior to that of like admitting that this is not normal. I'm not coping. I'm not okay. And I can't figure out how to get out of this, and then asking for help. It's so powerful.
Yeah, totally. And it's like I said, it's that pressure valve. It just releases the pressure. And once you start doing that, I guess you learn by the experience. Okay, I've done this once, cool. Like nothing bad happened. No one thinks anything bad of me. It's just me, right? And it's like, okay, let's try this again.
I didn't die.
You do it again.
The judgment police weren't at my front door waiting to pound me.
Yeah. Charlotte's not waiting to give me a divorce because their parents think that I'm weak or something. It's like it's just nothing bad's happened. It's like it's all good. And like you said, they're keen. They want to step in. They want to help out. And even my mum, when she comes to stay, like there was a point where Charlotte was in the thick of it, right? She was in the thick of her depression. And I just got on the phone to my mum and I just said, Mum, can you come and stay for some weeks, And she said, yeah, of course, I'll be there. I said, look, things aren't going well at home. Charlotte's not coping. Can you give us a hand? And she was on the first train, and she came. And she just took that pressure off us, and regardless of all the other things that happen and that have happened before, you just let it go. There's got to be a point where you just let go, surrender, and just go, all right, I need some help here. And once you do that, it's just so much easier and so much, you just have a happier time. Like everybody's involved, like you said. So there's no pressure needed.
So you used a really powerful word, surrender. Tell me in your words what that means to you and how you now see that in the context of this journey that you've been on as a new dad or newish dad, a couple of years down the road.
Yeah, it's something I'm still learning now. Like I feel like when the tension builds and it's in the pit of your stomach and there's this kind of control going on, like sort of spinning around you. It's like you're kind of trapped in your own sort of body, I guess. It's like once you can just take back a little bit of control for your own self and just release, and you start to release and it's a physical sensation of releasing. That's what I know is to be surrendering. It's no matter what stories are popping up or what anybody says about yourself and all these kind of things. It's just, no, I'm taking time for myself. I'm getting quiet and I'm just going to release and surrender. And it's the same with parenting. So there's lots of times where, there's an outcome that I would like Violet to achieve, let's say. Yeah. And it's something simple like putting your shoes on to go outside because it's raining and she doesn't want to wear her shoes. And it's like, there's this tension that builds up. And then there's this voice in my head. It's like, oh no, man, I don't want to sound like my mum. So this is the point where I go, all right, surrender, let go, just let it go. Everything's going to be cool. And she'll learn by her own experience. If she goes outside, she hurts her feet, she's going to learn that shoes protect your feet or, these sort of simple things. So that for me is what surrender means. It's just letting go. It's releasing tension.
I love that. It's so funny too, because I didn't remember this until you used the phrase release and surrender. Like, I have a couple of kind of woo-woo practices, and one of them is I pull a few angel cards most mornings before I start work. Anyway, for those of you watching this on the video channel, you'll see the card I'm holding up. This one came up to me today, release and surrender. And yeah, it's literally just a reiteration of everything you've said. You know, this card says, we shower you with blessings of our radiant love. Open your arms, release the challenges that you've held tightly gripped within your hands. Open your hands, arms, and heart to our love and assistance. And that could apply equally to angels, or to the universe, or to God or faith, or whatever it is you lean upon. But it can also apply to the people we care about that are in our lives, right? Like, and I think this is just this beautiful theme I'm discovering as we chat more, that there's so much assistance and support right around us. And there's like this flow that when we really just let go of all of our own crappy expectations and you know, fears of judgment and all the other stuff we tend to carry around sort of unconsciously. Like you say, when Violet goes, no, I don't want to wear my shoes, you go, okay, this is an opportunity for all of us to learn and grow. This is maybe me learning what it feels like to just let go a little bit, and her learning what it feels like to step on a rock and go, ouch, you know, whatever it is. But it's so good. There was a point I wanted to make too, which I think, especially for the men listening, and as a, you know, two men, two dads sitting here, particularly on the asking for help thing, right? One of the things I've come to learn is that when whenever we put ourselves in the position of someone who wants to offer support, when we see someone struggling, particularly like another mate, right? Like another man, another bloke, we see them struggling. We want to help them, right? If someone was to ask us, well, if you saw, you know, a good mate of yours really having a hard time, would you help them out? You'd be like, yeah, for sure. Like, in a heartbeat, you know, I'd be there. I'd help them out. I would absolutely support them. I'd, you know, cook dinners, or I'd go like pick up their dog and take it for a walk, or I'd do whatever it took. You know, I'd spend time being there to listen. And yet, when we have hard times ourselves, we don't necessarily follow the same path. We would go, oh, no, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to impose. I don't want to kind of put any pressure on them. So it's that kind of beautiful conflict and that tension between, as men, we want to be supportive to others, but when the mirror gets turned upon us and we're ready to ask for support and assistance, we can't. So from that, when we're in that position where we're the ones needing help, how would you help the dads listening to this reframe that so that they can think about, well, maybe I should just ask for help?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it's like you said, reluctant. We're reluctant to be a burden on anybody else, but it's like, I guess it's hard because until you go through it, you don't realize. I guess you have to experience this kind of this pain, I guess, to get to the other side of it, and this discomfort to get to the other side of it and go, well, I don't wish that on anybody else. I don't wish that on my friends, you know. So I'm gonna put myself out there, and I'm just gonna ask for help and see what happens, you know, because that, like, I guess, like, it's either just keep going through that pain, keep going through it, and never actually coming out the other side. You just keep going in this wheel, or just go through the pain, get to the other side, and realize that it's not as bad as what you think. And you know, like what I was thinking is one of Charlotte's best friends, Kat, she's just about to have a bubba, and one of the things that Charlotte's gone and done now for like, you know, some sort of gift to her is she's organized a meal train. So she's got together with like all of her other friends, and she's found it online somewhere. I don't know where she found it. Amazing. And basically there's a roster. It gives you a roster, and people, like friends, plug in when they would like to, you know, cook a meal for them. and you just plug in the date when you want to drop it off. And so you cook the meal and you turn up, and then they've got this huge downstairs section to their house. So, if Kat's not feeling it and she doesn't want to have a chat, then you just drop off the food downstairs and off you go, So, and then while you're there, you can chuck a load of washing on, or you can do all this kind of stuff. So out of that sort of pain that we went through, you go, I don't want anybody else to go through that as well. So there's ways around it, but that's also telling your friends that, hey, like, I'm here and it's okay. It's okay to ask for help because I'll be here within a heartbeat, like you said, So I guess, I guess what did I take out of it was, there's no shame, there's no guilt in asking for help. And if you want to be that parent that you're aspiring to be, then you got to bring other people along on the journey with you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%, mate. I love that. What would you add? I love the idea of the meal train. I think that's fantastic. For new dads, though, because new mums often, and I know this is no disrespect to the mums in the house, but new mums often get the bulk of the attention, rightly so, because they're the one that have just, carried the bub for 9 months and then popped out this baby and then, breastfeeding and up all hours of the day and night and all that kind of stuff. But what would you suggest? Like if we were going to kind of brainstorm or spitball a few different ideas now that could support dads through the same process, what would you say? Because I feel like this is it's not unique to you and me going through a challenging time, either our partners or ourselves, after a new child arrives. What's something that you could say to the dads that are listening to this that have a partner who's expecting or that have a young child sort of similar age to Violet or something like that? What would you suggest we could do? What are some ideas of how we can encourage this kind of same behaviour to support the men?
Yeah, really good question. Well, I guess
while we're at it, let's just solve world hunger and climate change as well.
I reckon. Why not? Let's give it a go. I just think
realised the scope of the question. Like, far out, I'm not asking you too much, am I?
No, I'll do my best. But maybe just in the back of your mind, what lights you up? Like, what do you feel that you need to do that brings you joy and happiness and whatever, as a guy, like in a solitary pursuit outside of the family, right? So could be surfing, could be having beers, could be playing pool, whatever. I think it's really important that you take time for you. Like I totally get it that, the mums are going through this, like, and they're bearing the bulk of the responsibility, but to be the support that you want to be, you need to let off steam. You need to talk to people about this as well. So I think, for guys, I think it's best when you get together and you go, I don't know, this is generalizing, but have a few beers, play some pool and just have a chat, like take your mind off things. Or if you're into surfing or, that kind of thing, it's like nothing better than just go paddle out in the waves and just forget about things for a little while and then till you come back in and get in the car and go back home. So I think it's really important. It's like, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like prioritizing joy or play for ourselves, so that, like, acknowledging too that it doesn't mean we're not being responsible. And I suppose this is like it's another angle or another lens on the overall conversation about when it comes to self-care, it's actually being of service to the people in our lives when we really look after ourselves so we can be our best. And so this situation of being a brand new parent, of wanting to support your wife and your daughter as best you can, and, also, we haven't even touched on, we probably run out of time for that, as far as going into what it's like balancing all of that and a really demanding kind of job or career path where you've got a lot of different responsibilities to wear there too. But it's like that thing of when we are prioritizing ourselves, it doesn't mean we're being an irresponsible husband or father. It doesn't mean we're being really selfish. What it means is we're actually giving ourselves what we need to recharge our own batteries so we can show up better for the people we love.
Yeah, that's great. And it comes back to, like you said before, awareness of these stories, right? It's like when these little invaders are coming in and trying to tell you, like, what's going on or what you should be doing, it's like you just really need to dig in there and just say, no, this is just a story. Like, I'll let this go. Like, you just got to be really, I guess, what's the word? You just got to be really proactive just to let that go. And I'll tell you one quick story that I did, and this might help your listeners to just go, what an idiot, why'd you do that? When the first days I got home from Bubba being born, like, the house was a bit of a mess, and Charlotte really appreciates a clean house. So I went home, and friends of ours who are having the baby cat, she was looking after our dog. So I went home, baked some bread, mowed the lawns, cleaned the house, and went back, got Bubba and brought her home. And after that happened, I just, like, my body was just, I don't know, it just caved in, and I got like the flu basically. And I was out, man. I was out for like 3 to 4 days. I couldn't get up. And so Charlotte's folks were there. And because I was in that overdoing mode. I got to do this, got to do that. I got to be the man of the house, got to be that, got to be. And all it did was it just wore me out. And so, yeah, I guess just take some advice. And I spoke about it before. You need to experience these things before you really know. But I don't know, if it's any consolation, just take it easy, because I've been there and it wasn't easy. I didn't make it easy for myself. I only made it hard. So, yeah, take some advice.
I think if there's anything that people can take away from this, it's absolutely that, like, or one of the things I look at as well is that it's one of the reasons I'm having these chats, I suppose, is really the point, is that if we can make the journey slightly softer and a little bit easier and a little bit less difficult by having these open conversations, for other dads and soon to be dads that might be listening, to go, you don't have to grind yourself into the ground to recognize that there's a different way of doing things, because we've done that, both of us. Like you said, you pushed so hard that you blew out for 4 days with the flu. Like, I get that. I've been there too, where you just overdo, kind of hyperactive, don't take care of yourself, suddenly wind up at the bottom of like a complete burnout. That's, I would love for the men listening to this to recognize, oh, okay, so these guys are not really that different from me, and they've gone through some stuff and they've made some mistakes, and this is an opportunity for me to learn that lesson without making the mistake and having the big fall. So obviously we all have limits, and we don't mind pushing and testing a little bit to see how far we can go to get away with it. But like you say, if we were able to pause, slow down, look after ourselves a little bit better, it's going to ultimately lead to a healthier environment, a better relationship, and a better ability to be the dad and the husband that we want to be in the household. So
totally.
So much good stuff. Mate, I reckon we should probably wrap this up. For those of you listening, you may not be aware, thanks to the joys of editing, but we've had no end of bloody internet problems trying to get this episode resolved. So I think we might quit while we're ahead. We've got a bit of stability at the internet at this point.
Nice.
My God, it's been such fun chatting with you, Scott. I'm really grateful for your insights and your openness to share how you went, how Charlotte went, what it's been like for the first couple of years of Violet's life, and everything you said about, asking for help and about identifying stories and all of that. And I mean, you and I both know and love Jim Fortin's program about all of this and so much more. For those of you listening, there is actually an episode I go into where I dig really deep into stories and storytelling and how to spot them. I'll link to that in the show notes for us. And Scott, I'm also really aware that in your work as an artist, part of it is about building awareness and exposure. So what would you like to tell people about how they can connect up with you and learn more about what you do outside of this chat?
Yeah, firstly, thanks so much, Israel. It's definitely been enlightening for me, just going back over those experiences. It's like, oh yeah, right, that's what happened. It's been great. And so, and also to pat yourself on the back and just go, what, you're doing a good job. It's everything's fine. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on your program. Really appreciate it. And for those of you who want to see my stuff, it's basically I've got a website. It's just scottraylor.com, SCOTTRAYLOR.com. jump on there. You can reach me through the About page there. And also too, I've got a podcast that I've just started with another fellow TCPer called Aligned Dads, and we talk about the difficulties of raising a daughter. So if you're having a daughter and you want to learn by our experiences and what we share, jump on, have a listen, because there's tons of content and stories about raising a daughter specifically, but it's not only daughters, it's about being a dad, and the responsibilities around that. So yeah, thanks very much, Israel. I really appreciate it.
And I know too, it's been my pleasure, mate. And I know too, with your podcast, it's with Prashant. And what's beautiful that I'm quite looking forward to digging in some more is because you're obviously in Brisbane in Australia, Prashant's in Bangalore in India. Completely different cultural context, completely different, social and environmental context. And so there's a beautiful contrast, I'm sure, that comes up in the chats between you both about, what you are expected or what is expected of you in those different settings.
Totally. Yeah. And in particular, there's one to come out. It's about potty training. It's hilarious because I didn't realize that, there's certain cultural things, right, that go on in India and they don't see these certain things that we see. And so it's actually hilarious. I just went into a full story about, awesome. An experience that I had with Violet, and Prashant's just kind of wide-eyed, like laughing. That was great, but it was kind of like, shit, I've crossed a cultural boundary here. So it's beautiful though,
right.
It's getting to see these differences that we have, but also just knowing that we're actually all the same. It's all connected. So yeah, it's really fun.
Oh, I reckon that's a great place to leave it. We're all the same. We're all doing our best to be our best for the people we love and care about, no matter which part of the planet we're on. And you know, I think it's important for us men to keep holding spaces like this to support other men so we can all just up level and be a better version of ourselves. So on that, thanks again, Scott, for being here. And to everyone listening, please stay tuned for the next episode. We've got heaps more great chats coming up. It's our pleasure to be here, and let's keep on this fun adventure of how can we as dads be our best and thrive. Thanks so much. We'll see you next episode. Thanks so much for joining me on this most recent episode of Dad's Guide to Thrive as part of the Illuminating Lives podcast. I really appreciate you being here, and I would really appreciate if you resonated with this interview, if you wouldn't mind sharing it with the people in your life. Help spread this message, spread these conversations to dads, men, and women everywhere so that we can all be better. Write a comment, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to get notified for the next episode. And please remember that I'm a one-to-one coach and a professional speaker, helping dads in business feel more peace, be more at ease, and feel less stress and be better able to be the parent, husband, and leader in their lives that they want to be. So if you'd like to work with me or have me present to your organization, please contact me via my website or social media channels. The details are all in the description. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And in the meantime, may you be happy. May you be healthy, may you be loved, and may you live with ease.